Did you know that the estimated plastic waste on a worldwide basis is 300 million tonnes? That's 75 million elephants. And out of this 300 million tonnes of plastic waste, only 10% gets recycled. Hi you guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. Happy Earth Month again. I am so excited to be doing this little series. I wanted to extend Earth Day to Earth Month and release 4 lovely videos on how you can help the environment and what you need to know about plastic waste and living a better and healthier lifestyle. Today my video is all about plastic and what it does to your health. So a lot of people are probably expecting me to talk about microplastics and food, but today we're actually going to be talking about air quality, and something that I had no idea was the case until I did my plastic-free 40 challenge 2 years ago. I actually released a blog post then called Plastic Helping You Breathe Wheezy, which I thought was a hilarious pun. So I'm going to hit you with some facts and then I'm going to move on to my main point of this video. And basically just educate you guys on why it is so important that we reduce plastic waste, not just for all the animals, but for ourselves. So plastic is killing our ecosystem. Around 100,000 marine mammals die every year because of plastic pollution in the sea. 165 million tonnes of plastic are currently floating in our oceans, and we add another 8.8 million tonnes every single year. I don't have to tell you guys that plastic does not belong in the ocean, and the poor animals that are swimming in it didn't put it there. We did. We are responsible for the reason that it's there, and it is going to come back and bite us on the behind, and I'm about to tell you guys why. So despite being at the top of the food chain, we still rely on other animals and other ecosystems in order to support us and help us to live. This can be down to the food we eat, like sheep and cows, chicken and vegetation. All of it is part of the ecosystem, and all of it relies on another living organism. One living thing on this planet that we absolutely love is trees. And that is because we need oxygen to live and breathe, and they are our oxygen producing factories. Now, for as long as I can remember, I was told that trees were our main source of oxygen, and that was from photosynthesis. For those of you who don't know what photosynthesis is, basically we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out CO2, which is carbon dioxide, and trees, they don't breathe it in, but let's say they do, breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. So it's really good for us to have trees in our environment in order to clean our air, get rid of our CO2, and yeah, that's why deforestation and cutting down trees is so bad. On top of a million other reasons like animals losing their habitats, and I could go on for days, but that's not the point of this video. Now, I personally thought we were completely safe because I didn't think in a million years that plastic was going to affect our oxygen production, because how is plastic going to stop a tree? Plastic makes our soil much less nutrients rich, and it also has a lot of toxic chemicals that leak into the soil. However, trees are very strong and they will be able to grow through most of that toxicity, especially after they're past the early stages of life. But when I dug a little deeper, what I found shocked me to my core. Trees are not our main source of oxygen. What? So I was thinking to myself, if it's not trees, then it must be other plants. Wrong. Our main source of oxygen comes from phytoplankton. Phytoplankton is a little thing that floats in the oceans. Basically, they take in the sunlight and carbon dioxide and they release oxygen. They produce 50 to 85% of the world's oxygen. 50 to 85%. What the actual hell? Why are they teaching us in schools it's trees when it's actually phytoplankton? That's what I don't get. We wouldn't be alive without phytoplankton, and I was thinking to myself that, you know what, phytoplankton's pretty strong. I'm hoping that plastic hasn't reduced phytoplankton, so I kind of looked into that, and it was then that I started to see how the food chain affected everything that we were looking at. So algae, which is that green slimy sludge that you find in the oceans at the bottom of fish tanks in ponds, is phytoplankton's main food resource. So phytoplankton's primary food source is algae. Now, I thought there must be so much algae in the sea and so many phytoplankton, but then I found out phytoplankton population has decreased by 50% since the 1950s. That's huge. Imagine if we just got rid of half the people on Earth. They're the kind of numbers that we're talking about. And I thought to myself, this can't just be because of microplastics, because we didn't necessarily have microplastics floating in the ocean in the 1950s. So I had a look at the journey of plastic from when it was invented to where we are now, how much we used it, how much we consumed it. And it turns out that the 1950s is the decade that plastic became used in every household, and it became very popular across the globe. So this means that when we were making the plastics, the toxins were going out into the ocean, microplastics were introduced into our environment, and then phytoplankton began to die off, and the oxygen production that was being made by them was cut in half. Now, I don't know about you, but that makes me feel a little bit out of breath. that the direct correlation between a 50% decrease in the population of phytoplankton and the mass production of plastic in households? We need oxygen to live. This is not just global warming. This is about us not having enough oxygen. We need to cut down on plastics and not just recycle. I'm talking cut down. Reduce the amount of plastic that you're using. Not just the environment and then the animals and the plants, but for you, we need oxygen to live. We're at the top of the food chain, but we need these things. So I took a little closer look. I dug a little deeper. I had a look at what it would affect in terms of the rest of the ecosystem and the food chain. So if we look at this a little bit deeper, if there's no phytoplankton, that means that there's no food source for whales, clams, fish, invertebrates. If those animals then die out and start to reduce, then the food source for ducks, large fish, geese and swans will decrease. And without those animals, there's nothing for grizzly bears, polar bears, cows, birds, chickens, sharks, snakes, turtles, wolves, gulls. And without all of the above, then there's nothing for cats, foxes, coyotes, raccoons, hawks, owls. Oh, and also we won't have enough oxygen and we probably won't even see that happen because we'll all be dead. This is not a disaster video. I'm not an extremist. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we're going to run out of oxygen, but the effects that it's having on the planet are horrendous. And the fact that the pollution in cities is literally causing people to not be able to drive their cars through them anymore, that just highlights how much damage we have done to Mother Earth. And this all comes from a tiny organism that you might not have even heard of 5 minutes ago. I am just going to surmise this video before I move on to a couple more facts, and that is that plastic equals a reduction in phytoplankton equals a reduction in oxygen. Plastic is poison, and that is the bottom line. I am not saying cut it out of your life completely. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think we currently live in a consumerist world where the people making the products are educated enough to be making products that are good for the environment. But you can definitely make an effort, and it's about everyone making a small effort as opposed to one person giving up everything that's plastic and putting no waste into the world. Fact. Plastic is found in 1/3 of the UK caught fish, and only big pieces of plastic can be removed. So if they're caught with a bottle around their head, obviously they'll probably pull the bottle off and then it will be sent off to a restaurant to be eaten. But microplastics that are affecting algae and phytoplankton are also in all of that fish because they eat the phytoplankton and they eat the algae, like I talked about the food chain earlier. And I originally kind of thought people were being a bit fussy with microplastics. I didn't see the huge deal. I kind of wondered what the problem was. They're so tiny, they can't be doing us harm. That was a very uneducated and a very silly way to look at it, but to be fair, that was me about 5 years ago. So in a study looking at microplastics and the effects on health, they measured the amount of bisphenol A in people's systems. This is a toxin which is found in plastic. And the people with the highest levels, 25% of those people were twice as likely to get diabetes and heart disease. And the other health complications that they found were infertility and cancer. There's microplastics in so much of what we're eating, especially things like fish. So even if you're not doing it for the greater good of the animals, do it for the greater good of you and your system. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. This was one that took me a while to put together, I think just because there were so many facts. There is so much interesting information out there, and a lot of it we don't receive. The news kind of like to push particular stories forward, like they'll tell you that plastic causes cancer, but they won't actually tell you the ins and outs. And I don't think anyone is going to sit down on the 10 o'clock news and explain how plastic is causing phytoplankton to die out, which is causing us to reduce oxygen. So I just wanted to sit down, share that with you. I think it's one of the most interesting things I've actually found since I started my cleaner lifestyle. Make sure that you enjoy the rest of the Earth Day videos that are coming to you. I've already done my recycling video. That wasn't for Earth Week. That was a good few weeks ago now. But I will also add any of the other videos at the end. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you have any more interesting tips or facts, please drop them in the comments section below. I am always looking to learn more information. Have an amazing day, an amazing month, and do everything you can to make this planet a better and a greener place. Bye!